Okay, I am live. Let me get on here so I can see myself. Okay, let's see if anybody comes on in. Yeah, sorry, Drac. This is Eric. This is Sheets. I'm trying to get Bobby in here. He wasn't feeling too good, so I don't know if he's going to be able to make it. Um, but maybe he'll just show up in the chat. Um, yeah, so I just figured I would just go over what I'm doing here with the new news that's out. That being that Bledsoe is now out as well. It certainly, on the one hand, it makes Middleton, on the one hand, a better play because he even gets more usage. The other thing that it does is it increases the usage of some of these other guys, like Dante DiVincenzo certainly gets a bump. And if you wanted to, you could go, you can go a little fringy with other guys who are playing. But the other thing I would say is it does moderately increase blowout risk a little bit. Um, so I don't know if this, given the uh, even additional ownership that's going to go to Middleton as a result of this, I don't know if this is the greatest news for Middleton that Bledsoe is out because I don't know how much more usage he gets as a result of this. And it certainly increases blowout risk against the Bucks, and it also is going to increase ownership. So I'm not entirely convinced that, let's put it this way, that this news is particularly lockish, you know what I mean, for Middleton. Like, as a matter of fact, um, you know, I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but on DraftKings, I'm only going 33% of my lineups are going to have Middleton in it. Just again, just because the ownership is going to be so high that I really don't need to get too much done elsewhere. Um, so let me just look at real quick. Let's see if anybody, at least in my models, is kind of updated to be a significantly better play um, with Bledsoe out. And honestly, with the exception of DiVincenzo, who's now getting a big bump, obviously becoming an even better play. I'm not getting too much out of these tertiary guys like Connaughton and Ilyasova and Frank Mason. You might you might get a lot of you might get some ownership out of Frank Mason, I guess. Remember, a 3 game slate, people are looking to take shots, and the natural inclination is if a guy is out, then you would think that somebody is going to replace those points or replace that usage or to some degree both. But unfortunately, I mean, what I'm looking at here, nobody really gets a bump. Middleton slightly, and you get it out of DiVincenzo, but everybody else, I'm not too drawn to here. Um, so let me just again kind of review like what I'm doing and who I kind of like here. So in this Charlotte game, I still want to get exposure out of the Charlotte game. They did announce that Zeller was going to be starting, so I'm going to take a shot with some decent ownership, some decent exposure to him. Now, again, these are not, you know, not for everybody, but I'm also going a full 50% of my lineups are going to be with PJ Washington. I just feel as though he's just got that kind of upside. He's not projecting all that great, so maybe he doesn't not as highly owned as some of the other guys. So I'm going to try him, and also throughout my lineups, I'm going to get a decent amount of Miles Bridges. Like you see, by the way, this is the I guess it's the Roto Grinders. Whatchamacallit. Yeah, I'm gonna get to you in a second. This is like the Roto Grinders, kind of the extension, so it shows like what my percentages are. Yeah. So what I'm doing, Eric, just to kind of reiterate, is I am kind of fading Middleton a little bit. I'm only going 33% of my lineups here. Um, just because again, I just again I can't quantify this, but I just feel as though that the ownership on him is going to be just so high that I'm gonna that if he fails, you're just gonna be in such great shape. And I just think that with Bledsoe out, it doesn't really help him that much. I think that he was already a good play, and all that Bledsoe does is kind of increase the chances that the Bucks might mail this one in. You know what I mean? If things aren't going their way, and the Bucks don't have to win every game; they're going to win the Eastern Conference regardless of what they do. So there's no need to run Middleton out 36 minutes. You know what I mean? If things aren't going their way, I mean, they could use this game if they wanted to as just kind of like some random game. Um, Now, to address your next thing about Brook Lopez, he's fine for me. As a matter of fact, I have him about 33% of my lineups as well. So yeah, I mean, well, Denver, I would imagine is projected to win. I have a feeling that Denver is in a position where they could trash them a little bit here. I mean, this is it's a lot of points off the board. With no Giannis and no Bledsoe. Um, and Denver hasn't been playing all that well, so they're looking for an opportunity to do something. So I just feel as though where I wouldn't bet on necessarily Denver blowing them out. I just feel as though with all the ownership that's going to come from from Middleton and the leverage you'd have against him if it fails is I think it's I don't know, that's what I'm doing at least on DraftKings. I'm only playing the 33% of my lineups with him. I do like Lopez, um, and I guess the one guy that I kind of been drawn to a little bit, kind of like two guys kind of off the board, is I'm going to take a shot or two at Chris Boucher here. Um, with Gasol out, right? I mean, Ibaka's obviously the best play, but I've just seen that Ibaka's minutes sometimes not get that ceiling that you'd think, and Boucher's the kind of player that I like to consider self-correlating. That if playing well, he's going to get more minutes. Like they don't just say, okay, here's your 14, 12 minutes, whatever it is. If he plays well, he can earn more minutes, and he really just is incredibly active. So he's a guy I'm kind of throwing into my lineups a little bit. Eric says you're going to try to take down a live final with a Denver stack. All right, so let's think about how to do that. All right, so let's do one. So for example, let's just say I was going to do Denver stack because I did a little something with Denver. So what I would do if you're really trying to take down the live final, right? So how many people are in that, Eric? I mean, you got to win. You got to come in first. I presume you have to come in first, and how many people do you have to beat? I mean, if you really want to, I could try to help with this. So if you want to stack this Denver game, you know, and it's certainly fine. I guess what you're looking to do is first operate under the assumption that you're going to play DiVincenzo and we don't have to go through your actual lineup. Wait, to get to alive. Wait. Oh, so you got to beat 4,900 people, right? Is that what you're saying? Like one spot. So you got to try to get the sense of how kind of off the board you need to be here. I mean, again, I could certainly give you what I would do if I wanted to go take one of those down because you definitely need first place, right? So you'd have to have a combination of high upside, kind of low owned plays that have a chance, right? I like the idea of stacking the game to make it work. So, because I mean, you have three games here; they're all kind of close spreads. If one of them goes to overtime and you have it, you're going to be in really, really good shape. The other reason why I like, by the way, doing this 9 o'clock game instead of the 7:30 is you have some flexibility, right? So if it's 9 o'clock and you get a chance to see what these other games did, not these other games like this first game. Like if you're stacking this Denver game and you have chalk, like you have Jokic and
Middleton and DiVincenzo, whatever, and you see that Trey Young is going freaking ballistic, and Graham or whatever is going ballistic, and these guys are going to be highly owned because they're going to tell you what the ownership is on these guys right before you start. Then you'll know that you're going to have to pivot and do something different. So I think that flexibility does actually provide a little advantage if you wanted to do that. So I think you're going to have to play Jokic, right? If you're going to use this as part of a stack, and if this game is going to stay close, you'd have to believe that Middleton and DiVincenzo would both have to have really really good games. As a matter of fact, I might make the case that um, what you call it, you probably need a great game from a third player too, right? For Milwaukee. So if you want, let's just see what happens. If you put in all three Milwaukee guys, like the guys that project to be the highest scorers, DiVincenzo, Middleton, Lopez, and start with running it back with Denver, with Jokic, it's a good start. But what you're going to have to do for sure is dechalkify some of the rest of this. Like the first thing I would do is I'd look at the ownership of some of these guys. Like let me look at Denver for a second. So I see that Jokic is going to be upward of 40% owned, and all these other guys. So Murray, Millsap, and Barton, they're not bad. So they're 11. They're about 10, 12%, something like that. So you could play these guys. Um, you think Ursan's a better one than Lopez? I mean that would be a much better from an ownership perspective. Again, it doesn't really matter which one you pick for the purposes of this discussion, right? Because all it is going to affect is how much what you have to do with the rest of your lineup. So let's start with the Lopez one. Let's start with the chalkier one. So if you want to do that, you could get away with playing the whatchamacallit, the better players. That's the best way I could describe it on Denver because they're going to be somewhat low owned. So you could play if you want to really stack this. You want to go 3 by 3. You want to play Barton and Murray and Jokic. I mean, you get the three best players, and yeah, you're kind of chalky, but it's not that bad because Barton is 15 and Murray is 15 or so, and I'm not sure if that many people are going to do a full 6-man stack of this game, right? But I would still say that for your last two spots, you're going to want to do something a little nutso, right? So what I guess I'll ask you. I mean, you fill this in. I'm not going to play this lineup because this is yours, right? If you were going to do this, who would you put at these last two positions? So you have forwards, right? Either power forwards or forwards. You have 5K, and here are the rules. The rules are that you have to play high upside guys that are not going to be highly owned. Okay, those are the rules because if you're going to win the seat and everybody else seems somewhat logical, you have to come up with something a little different, right? So what I do is I'm kind of just looking at my. Do I have it here? Can't really show the ownership projections, but I'm just kind of just listing like all these guys and just kind of scrolling to see what are like 10% or so guys that might be able to do something, right? So just like for example, uh, okay, you want to throw somebody out at me, or you want me to? I mean, it doesn't really matter. But these are the guys that you have to kind of think about. So like one guy that I put up that I thought about is maybe DeAndre Hunter. He's kind of a high upside guy, but the good thing is he's really really low owned. So maybe he does something nasty for you. Okay, maybe he's a guy that you could put in. I got a feeling there's got to be better though. I got a feeling there's got to be a better upside guy. What about this Anunoby, Monty Morris, Caleb Martin? Let me look at those guys. Let me look at those guys. Anunoby, Caleb Martin. You know what we could use? We could try that Boucher idea if you want. Let's take a look. Hold on. Let me look at. So Anunoby looks really bad, projection wise. That's all right. You can look really bad. We're looking for guys who look really bad today. Monty Morris, he looks really bad. Okay. And who's the other guy I mentioned? DeAndre Hunter, he looks not that bad. So maybe DeAndre Hunter's a guy that you could put in. And then, is there anybody around here? All right, so Millsap. The problem is, I don't know if I can get away with 4, but you know what you could do? So look at all these 4,500 guys. Now this is where you could have some fun. Okay, yeah. So you could play. We could make some adjustments with Hunter. I don't think you can get away with it with Cody Zeller just because I think his ownership's going to be a little high. Let me take a look at that real quick. So maybe only 13%. Maybe that's not a bad idea. But the problem is now we're getting into positional eligibility issues, right? Because isn't he just no? He could play power forward. So you like him? All right, fine, that works. So you could put him at 4,900. And then who could you put in here? See, here's a guy. Like here are a couple of guys. I wouldn't play Millsap or maybe Ilyasova if you wanted to really be nasty. If you wanted to play 4 guys, like $4 and 3 Denvers, I mean that's honestly not. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that under normal circumstances, but these are not normal circumstances, right? You got to be 4,900 people. You almost have to get to overtime to win that, though, right? I mean, you need all these guys to kind of get there. Well, again, you got to kind of forget about all that stuff, like centers versus. I mean, all we're trying to do is just find guys with a shot, right? So yeah, that's fine. That's good enough. Centers against the Hawks, good enough for me. And so with this last 5,000, you know what you could do? You could play like an infinitesimally owned Joe Ingles or something like that. Or if you didn't want to do that, you could play Cam Reddish along. That's actually a really good idea. So what you do? Check this out. Like if you want to do that, you could play Cam Reddish. Oh yeah, sorry about this, K9. This is not Bobby, unfortunately. You could play Cam Reddish. You know what this does for you? This gets you a little correlation out of the Charlotte game, and this little 600 that gets left on the table. That could be make you pretty different also. So if you really wanted to do this, right? So this is the way I build. This is the way I hand build. You figure out what tournament you're in, right? You're in the live final. That means you have to beat 4,900 people, and you have to come in first place, I presume. Second place is whatever. So you have to come in first place. So you need a combination. You don't want to have all wild plays, but you have to have a decent combination of good plays and kind of wild plays. And then you kind of eyeball this and you say, okay, so what did I do? So I took the 3 best Milwaukee guys, and then I ran it back with kind of the 3 best Denver guys. Spent a lot of money doing it, so maybe people were afraid to do it. And then I filled it in with 2 kind of upside guys. One thing that you might have talked me into, though, like maybe a better way to do this, like you were saying, Eric, is what if you did try Ursan instead, just for the hell of it, right? Let's say if you want to de-chalkify these positions a little bit, right? Let's take out Zeller and Reddish again, and instead of making Brook Lopez your third buck, what if you made Ilyasova your third buck? Because he's definitely going to be lower owned than Lopez. And again, I don't necessarily like either of them. You know what I mean? Like, they're fine. But I don't like one. I guess I would have to say that I would like Lopez over Ilyasova by a decent amount. But who the hell am I? What do I know? You know what I mean? It's just a question of variance. You know, you can certainly do that. So if you did this with Ilyasova instead, and then you could then go and screw around a little bit with these 2 positions. I mean, you could, like Blender from Rotogrants, just play whoever you want. I wouldn't say play whoever you want, but you want to play guys in this last 2 positions that can generate some upside. So what if, for example, what if you did this? Again, I don't really want to talk you into plays, really, but if you did Boucher, it doesn't really help you all that much because then you got to go play Norman Powell. But then again, maybe Norman Powell at 6,800 is kind of like the mad scientist play. I don't know, but I think that's what you're going to want to do. So if you did again, now I'm not saying this is right, but if you did want to um, build a live final seat around this Denver Milwaukee stack, I think that this is one way to do it is by playing the top guys and then maybe using Ursan. Well, if you didn't want to use Brook. Now, what you're saying, Drac, is another uh, another way. What if can you possibly get away with a Denver stack without Middleton? I mean, if you could do that, like if you could somehow invent this Denver stack without Middleton, then you might be onto something. You know, like for example, like let's just say you thought it was going to be DiVincenzo season and he was just going to go off and it was just going to be his show. And let's say you wanted to also use, what's his name? Bledsoe, because you don't want to go too crazy, right? Let's say you wanted to use Bledsoe over here. And you now, at this point, you don't even necessarily have to do both Barton and Murray. But let's just say you wanted to for now. Then you could then go back to some of these other games and see if you can't find something else. Like, I think that this isn't going to work, right? Is Brook Lopez center eligible? You think Middleton is good chalk? Yeah, I guess that's fine. He is good chalk. But again, if he's good chalk, that means the rest of your lineup's got to be kind of different. I'm just trying to think of a way if you can. No, I know that K9, and he's certainly a great play, but we're trying to beat 5,000 people and with only first place. So I just want to see what it would look like if we ended up fading Middleton. Like, what kind of lineup can we actually get? So where is what's his name? Where is Siakam? Okay, so if we put him in, and then we can go to one of my favorite guys to play on Utah. Is let's just say let's hold off on Lopez for a minute. Let's say you played a high upside guy like either like Clarkson, for example. Okay. So again, we still have Jokic and Murray, which is strong, and Barton. We're running it back with DiVincenzo. We're going to put in either Lopez or what's his name? Either Lopez or Ilyasova or both, right? First thing we got to do is we got to put Barton at small forward so that we have room for the center position. So let's put Barton over here, and then we can put Clarkson up over here if we want to do that. So Clarkson will go up over here. Okay. So now what we have to do is figure out which of the other Milwaukee guy we're gonna use. We got 4,900 here. So you're saying Powell and OG are good pivots? Yeah, they very well might be, right? So let's say we want to do that. They're both the same price, but let's put Anunoby in there, right? So if we did that, if you wanted to, maybe you could use Pat Connaughton as your other Milwaukee guy. Now this is a tough one because I don't know if this is enough Milwaukee exposure, right? If you only have DiVincenzo and Connaughton, is that going to be enough to hold the line against Barton, Jokic, and Murray having good games? I don't know about that. So I don't even know if we have enough to spend on a newbie. But you know who we do have enough to spend on? We're going back to this dude again. Definitely going to have enough to spend on Boucher if we wanted to do that. Or maybe some other guys. So let's run this and let's try to see which our favorite Milwaukee guy is in this utility spot. So we're arguing between Lopez and Ursan, and they're relatively the same price. So let's take a look. Let's look at the harder one to get in. We'll put in Lopez. Now, if we put in Lopez, what $4,700 guy can we get in? okay, I don't want to put a fourth. We're in the same position we were before. I don't want to put in the fourth Denver. Oh boy, why am I so difficult? This is easy. What you do, like you could either go play Cam Reddish if you want, or Cody, but you could play both these guys. You could play these three Milwaukee's. You could play Ilyasova and Lopez and DiVincenzo, right? Fade Middleton that way. So you'll have your three Milwaukee guys here. You'll run it back with these three Denver guys. And you have huge upside guy in Clarkson, who's not going to be owned. And you have good raw points in Siakam, who's probably not going to be that highly owned either. So maybe this is a way to do it. Okay? So that's I don't know. I think that's a pretty decent exercise there. So what do you want? You want DiVincenzo, Harris, Powell, Washington, Lopez, that's hey, sounds good to me. Um, yeah, Gary Harris is another guy who, again, he's not usually that high upside guy, but on a slate like this, he's really, really cheap. So you want Zeller as a one-off instead of Lopez? Yeah, I mean that's possible, but again, we're again the purpose of this particular lineup is we're trying to help Eric with again the directive was winning the live final seat using a Milwaukee Denver stack. It doesn't mean you have to do that, but this is the way you would I would do it if that was going to be my directive. Is I would. And now again, that doesn't mean you have to play all three of these Denver guys in together because it's going to be difficult for all of them to get there. But if they do, I don't think very many people are going to pay up for all three of those guys, which in and of itself makes this kind of a distinct build. So if you could just get enough out of DiVincenzo, Ilyasova, and Brook Lopez, right? And you know what, you know how it's going to work, right? You can have Middleton have a good game, but just not a smash game. So all Middleton's got to do is well enough to keep them in it, and have great games from DiVincenzo. I mean, you are going to need that. Great game from Lopez, and probably a really good game from Ilyasova, which will give Jokic, Murray, and Barton the opportunity to play all those extra starters minutes down the stretch with some possible overtime vig. I think that's actually got a chance. So um, let me just scan my board here again and just kind of just view just a couple more guys I'm looking at. Again, it's really close to lock anyway. Yeah, I can see why Middleton scares you, and which is why again I'm only playing him 33% on DraftKings. I just am. I just feel his price on FanDuel is just kind of too tough for me to fade. So I do have him in all 6 of my lineups on FanDuel. FanDuel, basically, I'm playing one lineup. I mean, there's very little difference between all of these. It's just kind of one big. I'm literally basically one big buy and just kind of differentiating very, very small amount of places. The place I'm really taking a stand here is fading Collins. I'm playing him on 0 lineups. Not that he's a bad play, but I just kind of had to take a stand somewhere. And also only playing Trae Young in 2 lineups here. So that's going to be my deal. All right, I guess that's about it. I would say any quick questions, but it's going to be over really, really quickly. And I'm glad it was a short enough slate where we could get through it. And also, it's glad to hopefully help Eric. Now I'm going to be sweating, man. Now I got to go watch that. So it's going to be a DraftKings live final seat. I'll be sweating. See what you came up with. And what's your handle there on DraftKings, Eric? Anyway, you just let me know how you do, and if you're live late, just fire off a message to me and Bobby. Maybe we'll get on there and sweat you down the stretch because you're going to be the last game. You're never out of it. I will catch up to you guys later. All right, so let's do this. We're going to go here, end stream.